What's up, YouTube? I wanted to show you guys a fairly new device that has come to me from the company allaccessdevice.com. It is a new float switch device that allows you to actually have a built-in inline float switch as well as a way to easily blow out or clean out the drain line. Some of the marketing material that comes with the device is the different fittings that you can get, and I'll show you that stuff here in this video. It gives you also a layout of how to use each of the accessories. The device is basically a float switch that goes in line. A lot of people are familiar with the Easy Trap float switch device, the SS2, SS1, SS3, different types of float switches in the SS line. This one is basically a box, and it's got a 3/4 drain tap on this side, 3/4 drain tap on that side, and then there's a little lid that houses the float switch device itself. On the side of the device there's a little notch with a grommet that allows you to pass your wiring through, and this would go into your drain line. What you'll get with the device itself is a male thread adapter with a female 3/4 drain fitting on the opposite side that literally just fits into the coupling. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of actually using this type of device. I prefer to use a regular 3/4 drain line connector with a female socket on the opposite side and a little bit of pipe between the two. For instance, or because what I'm used to anyway is that you end up having to cut the drain line at one point or another. And if you bury this device all the way in, you may have some reason to cut it, at which point you've just rendered the complete device trash or useless. And if you use a regular fitting with a little bit of pipe in between, you could cut it and reconnect if you had to do such a thing. The other thing you get is a cap that goes on the opposite side of where the thread fitting is, and you could use this on a secondary drain line so that you could use it as a secondary drain line float switch rather than an inline float switch on the primary drain. To me, if you're able to put a primary drain trap or float switch on the primary drain line, it's perfectly acceptable to just leave that secondary plug in place and no need to add additional fixtures. But this device, or the cap, allows you to simply plug it if this was the end of the line and you weren't going to play with anything else. On the inside of the device, you've got a little black tab here. You pop that down. It makes and comes loose with a good little click noise. And then there's actually a gasket in the lid that seals down onto the cabinet so that you're airtight. But on the inside, you've got a magnetic reed switch, similar, if not identical, to the SS series of float switch devices, and you can remove that simply sliding the little grommet out of the notch and then pulling out this frame that holds the float switch in place. So here you've got just a magnetic reed switch, definitely more consistent than your micro contacts that are in the Easy Trap devices. And you've also got a couple of increments on the side of the shaft there that would allow you to raise or lower your float switch at 3 different levels. You simply slide it out and snap it in at a different level to get your float to be higher or lower. There was some question as to the rigidity of this box, and it appears to be built out of full Schedule 40 PVC. With the device open, your lid can come off if you needed that type of access. The little snap is constantly there with a little metal rod to hold it in as your hinge. But if I try to take this box and flex it, it doesn't flex. If I try to crush it this way, it doesn't crush that way either. And then if I was to try to bend it the other direction, this is extremely rigid. I think you could actually have a long distance of pipe away from the air handler with no support on it, and this would not be your weakest link. Putting it back together, the lid just slides over into the little eyelets and goes back down, snaps shut. You just drop your float switch assembly back in, slide your grommet back into the notch, close it down, and you're finished. So there's your basic AA1-FS, the all-access first generation float switch. With the accessories that are available with it, you get the adapter. It's all access adapter, and we'll disassemble this one more time to show you how that would be utilized. So you've got this big cavity here that allows you to take your adapter, and if you needed to blow upstream or downstream, you drop this in. It dry fits into the socket, but it fits into the socket there, and then on the opposite side you can do the same thing. Just flip it around, put it the other way if you're trying to blow upstream or downstream. Pretty straightforward there. You've got a all-access nitro. Basically you've got a refrigerant hose threaded adapter on a 3/4 PVC cap. And for this you would simply slide it onto the adapter, drop it into your box, inside the box, and you could apply nitrogen pressure to the 3/8 threaded fitting there and blow your drain out with nitrogen. If you're in a location where nitrogen doesn't necessarily seem to make sense, they also have an adapter that is the all-access water. It would allow you to connect to the same elbow adapter, and then there's actually a rubber grommet inside the fitting where you could tie this to the end of a water hose or spray nozzle and apply water pressure rather than nitrogen pressure to the drain line. All in all, it is very rigid, very robust construction, and there is one other item that is available, and that is your insulation wrap. There's a little piece of insulation that has got double-sided tape at the opening here, so you could wrap it around the float box and apply your insulation. If you had to maintain an insulated drain line in an attic or whatever, it would give you an R value on the box so that if you had sweat or water there, you wouldn't get drips off of the device itself. The guys over at All Access have been kind enough to send me this demo unit, and I may, when it comes time to upgrade my own house system, actually use this device on my own system as the primary float switch on the primary drain line. I think it's a phenomenal product. I think it's probably more beneficial than even the SS1 device that allows you to put a drain safety in line with the float switch, because you can actually get in there and clean the line after the fact. With this particular device, I would probably not use my typical drain setup where I would put a T on top of my cleanout, because I wouldn't necessarily need it. And one other thing that comes to mind as I'm closing up here is that it does state in the paperwork that you can put this device as much as 45 degrees on an incline if necessary. So you've got some options and flexibility with how you would apply the device. So check it out. Once again, the All Access AA1-FS. Check with your local dealer. If they're not stocking it, call them up and ask them to stock it. I think you'll be pleased with the way it works. So until next time, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, share. We'll see you on the next video.